Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's live learning event on cracking the code of high school transcripts, a flexible approach to automation. Thanks for joining us. My name is Brad Blood, and I will be the moderator for today's event. If you have any questions, you can send them in through the Q&A box at the bottom of the screen, and then we will answer your questions as time allows. We are also recording today's meeting, and we will be sending out a link to it to everyone who registered for today's webinar. Today's speaker is Logan Hill, a higher ed specialist here at Grooper. Logan specializes in intelligent document processing and AI-driven automation. Logan travels the country meeting with colleagues and universities to solve their toughest challenges. He's passionate about problem solving and digital transformation, and he works closely with clients to unlock the full potential of their data and maximize campus growth. Logan, take it away.
Thank you, Brad. Hello, everybody. As Brad mentioned, I'm the higher ed specialist here. I kind of stepped into that role a couple years ago, and as I mentioned, I work very closely with a lot of universities, and ultimately what I try to do is help solve complex problems. The demonstration that you're going to see today is a direct result of that. I worked with a local university who had this need around high school transcripts, so we were able to develop a process that helps them do this a little bit more efficiently. So one thing to note is that I plan on doing kind of a series of these, higher ed focused webinars. So keep your eyes on, emails that come out from myself or Brad or even Tim McMullen about some upcoming ones. I know we've already got one planned for the end of August, early September around recruitment. So that being said, let me share my screen and we'll get started. So let me see, this is screen 2 here. Perfect. And Brad, do you mind? Can you see my screen okay?
Yep, you're good.
Perfect. Thank you. Let me move you guys over just onto my other screen here for a second. So this is the Grooper dashboard. Think of this as what an end user might see when they're processing documents or transcripts in this case. So this right here, think of this almost as your queue. So as they come in, as transcripts come in, we can set it up to be automated. So as they come in, they just appear here in the queue and kick off a process. But every once in a while, and I'm sure that you all experience this, you may still get some physical transcripts that come in that need to be, scanned in, and we still have that ability as well. So we kind of keep this very flexible with the ability to handle both. So what I'm going to do for this demonstration today is I'm going to manually create a batch here. So you'll see this little plus icon up here. So I'm going to create a new batch. If you have multiple processes, we give you a drop down here. You can actually go click which one you want. So for instance, if you had one, let's say that, this is high school, but let's say you had one for, college transcripts or international transcripts, for instance, or even like ACT score sheets, when those come in, you could go through and, pick those as needed. But if you set this up to be automatically bring those documents in and create the process, you would never see this right here. But again, just kind of walking you through some of this. So I'm going to create this one here, and you'll notice here, as I created that, a second one was brought in here, and it tells you the individual step of this particular process. So I'm going to click on this one here, and you'll see this first step here. The other thing to note is you see this in dark mode at the moment, but we make it very, very easy. And in my experience working with higher education, many like light mode a little bit better. So I'm actually going to just show you how easy it is to make that toggle over to the light mode. And I'll do the rest of this demonstration in light mode for you. So this first step you'll see here is just add documents. So I'm going to double click this one, and you'll see this interface. If we were scanning documents, you'd see a little icon. In this case, I don't have a scanner profile set up with my machine, so that icon's not here, but that would pop up. You click that, and it scans the pages in automatically. But in this case, what I'm going to do is just simply drag and drop. So I drag this window over here just to show you how this is done. I'm literally going to click and drop this document in here. And so when I click on it, you'll see here, this is a high school transcript. This is actually my high school transcript that I got from Parchment. I just downloaded it into the folder that you just saw, and then simply drag it over into this interface here. And I'm going to say, yep, that's good, and complete this process. So a couple things are happening here automatically. You can see the progress bar is at the bottom. So the first step that we need to do is what's called split pages. Think of this as basically identifying how many pages are in this transcript. Could it be 1 page? Is it 2 pages, 3 pages, etc.? The reason we do that is because when we go to the next step to perform OCR, or simply making these transcripts machine readable if they aren't already, what we're doing there is doing that at a page level. And that's really important because Not so much in this particular use case that we're talking about with high school transcripts, but potentially on some international ones or some other documents that you may need to be processing. What we do is we can actually get very granular and say, look for information on certain pages and so forth, or exclude certain pages. Let's say you always get, like a cover page that comes in on the very beginning of a document. You want to don't look for any information on that. Or for instance, on the end of a transcript, you kind of have that instruction guide that kind of tells you maybe the grading scale and how some of this is scored. And you want to exclude any of that because you don't necessarily want to collect that information for this student. We can use pages individually to specify where to collect information. So once these documents are machine readable, the next thing that we go to do is classify them. Think of this as just identifying what that document type is. So one of the brilliant things that we can do is we can say, put multiple documents in. So let's say, for instance, we had a process with high school transcripts, college transcripts, and international transcripts. You wouldn't have to necessarily process those individually if you wanted to. You could throw them all in a batch. We can go, okay, this is this kind of document, this is this kind of document, this is this kind of document. And then that allows us to specify not only the rules that need to be applied to those documents, but also specify what kind of information we want to collect, because it'll vary from document to document. So once that process has happened and we've identified what document type it is, this is where we perform extract. And think of this as simply as just collecting data from the document. So once that happens, you can see here, we've already processed, so it moves very, very fast. You'll see this data review step. And think of this as verifying the information that was collected and validating it as well. So this could be fully automated. You don't have to necessarily have a data review step, but if we did that, I wouldn't have anything to show you guys. So left that in here for this demonstration. So I'm actually going to open this up, and this is where you're going to see the Grooper kind of review UI. So what you'll notice is you have your image over here on the right. You have the data that was collected here on the left. One thing to note here is that we have a lot of flexibility with how this interface right here that you're seeing in this UI is designed. So for instance, just to give you some general Grooper stuff, if you're not familiar, we can simply kind of toggle up and down, left and right. We can even swap them if you wanted it that way. And if I click this little icon here, I'm not actually going to do it here, but it would actually pull that image out and you could put that on a separate screen if you wanted. So not only can we do those, basic kind of Grooper functions, all of this organization here, all of these, what we call them sections here, we can make this look and feel however it wants. I've worked with a few engineers here where we've actually made it look and feel like it's a part of that campus's kind of ecosystem and a lot of the other, websites and some of the other systems that they're using. So that way it kind of fits in really nicely. But let's focus on the data that we've collected here. So a couple things have happened here. You can see here there's 3 errors on this page. And they pop up as an error, but think of them also as a way to flag something or bring your attention to these items. And that's how we're using these in this case, is to highlight some areas that, hey, something's not right here. You should probably take a look. So I'm going to start here at the very top with some basic header information that we've collected from this document. The first one here that you see, this is a student ID. And if you're familiar with Banner, you probably are familiar with this format of the student ID. But what I want to point out is this is not on the document. If you look at the Parchment student ID or the actual ID from the document, that is not what's here. And that's by design. What I've done here is looked up into a student information system that we have here that I've mocked up to do a database lookup. And really, in technical terms, what that means is I'm verifying that this student exists inside of the student information system, or it could be, student CRM, something like a Slate or a Recruit for, maybe that's something that you guys are using. So what I've done here is I've actually taken the last name and the date of birth, or potentially the last name and the social security number, the last 4 of that, to populate this information here. So one thing that I get asked about a lot is, well, what if we don't want to use last name and date of birth, or last name and last 4 of social? What if we want to use like an address or something along those lines? Absolutely, we can. It's just think of it as, keys essentially. So you're using specific keys to go find some information. So another thing you can see here is that in this date of birth, that is actually on this document. You can visually see that it's right here, but over here, it's actually hidden. And that's by design to help with, accidental disclosures, things like that. So when I actually click in here, you'll see that it actually highlights on the document here in green where we found that information, and it'll let me see it. But as soon as I click off, it's hidden. So these are some of those cool features that I mentioned with the design side of this that we can kind of customize to what your needs are. And this particular data model that we're looking at, obviously I'm not grabbing the address or guardian or anything like that. But if that's information you wanted to collect, we could absolutely do that. Or even bring forth information that's not on this document that may exist in your student CRM or your student information system. So next we're getting
real
yes.
quick, I just want to jump in and remind everybody that if they have a question, to please submit it to the Q&A box at the bottom of the screen, and we will take care of it. Just wanted to remind everybody of that one more time.
Thank you, Brad. I appreciate that. So moving on here, we're collecting the high school. And again, you can see that over here on the right, the dates attended. So obviously this is something that is not specifically outlined on this where think of it as a label and a value. This is something that with our new features with AI has allowed us to analyze all of the text and go, okay, all of the coursework here starts in 2010 and and ends in 2013. So everything's within that range. That's how it allows us to get here. We're also collecting, this is a cumulative GPA that you see down here at the bottom, as well as the class rank, and you can see where we're finding that information. So kind of moving on here, one of the next things is we're able to go grab the test scores from this document. So for instance, in this case, there was 2 attempts that you can see down here, and you'll actually see the box on where this information was found. And if I toggle to the next one, you'll see that it immediately jumps to that next test state. So we're grabbing all of the individual scores for each test here. And I've been asked about too, can you specify the highest ones for each subject so that way you can look for things like college placement testing? Absolutely, we can. It's just not a part of this demonstration that you're seeing here. But yes, that is something that we can do. The SAT here, there's no SAT scores here. So therefore, this has been left blank, but the section still exists. So here is where a lot of people are excited about this use case and this process and the way we go about doing things. Because as many of you are probably familiar with, is calculating core GPA. That is a very manual process today. Many are still doing, pen and paper with a calculator and then constantly having to recalculate things. And it's a bit of a headache. So what we've been able to do is not only go collect all of the high school courses, but also put this in a way that's dynamic and automatically calculates and updates as you're validating the information and working with the data. So what you'll see here is the total number of units here that were collected below, the core GPA, as well as being calculated, as well as the individual units for each one. Many universities and colleges that I work with, they only want that 15 core units, and they want to work in the student's favor and remove the lowest graded courses. So that's where you're seeing some of these flags come up here to help you identify those. So for instance, if you look at science, it's giving me a flag here. And again, we can customize this to say whatever you want it to be here. But essentially, it's to draw attention and bring your eyes to it to say, hey, something's not right here. You should probably take a look. And in this case, what's happening here is I've got 4 units of science and I only need 3. So therefore, we need to remove a couple of courses. So you can see here the information that we were collected. And if we want to do what's in the student's best interest, we're going to remove the anatomy and physiology class here. And I'm just going to right click and delete row, apply that, click in here. Here's the other one that's corresponding because we're still over, and delete that row. So now you see that error's gone. This has actually been recalculated, and so has the GPA. Well, let's say, I accidentally deleted the wrong one or something along those lines, and you want to go add one. Well, it's really easy to right click and let's say insert a row here. And I can come over here and I'm just going to pick a random one here. I'm going to use what we call rubber band OCR. So I'm going to click this and I'm actually going to draw a box. I'm just going to pick a random course here. I'm going to pick my athletics course and you'll see that comes in. So you don't actually always have to type it. In some cases, maybe you want to. If it's just a couple letters or something like that, it might be faster for you to key it. But you don't have to. You can do the draw box, or I can even come over here in the gray. It's set to default to F, but in this case, I just want to double click on A and it brings it right back in. And again, as I mentioned, if I wanted to, I can come over here and just type it as well. So a couple different ways. And as I do that, all of this, you'll see 3.5 and 3.14. So all of that now gets recalculated live. So we try to make this in a way that's speeding up the automation of data entry, but also dynamic enough that allows you to work with the data, make corrections, make adjustments, because there's always going to be some sort of exception that comes up, or some special thing you got to do for a particular student or something like that. So this allows you to still have that flexibility. So I'm going to actually just go ahead and delete this row here There we go. Everything got recalculated back to 3. So that error is now gone. And kind of scrolling down, you can see what we've done here is we've actually grouped these by the individual subject to make it a little bit easier to validate as well. So you can kind of see how this is all laid out. And again, we can customize the look and feel of this however you want it to be. So looking at history here, same issue. I'm just going to go down here and remove this one because it's the lowest grade. Delete that, and you'll see the error is going away. So now we just have one left. So what this does here is allow us to recalculate the GPA and the number of units, get rid of all of those errors, because here is where now we can take that information we've collected and actually do an initial pass across your acceptance requirements for your school. So typically what I see is there's typically, 2 to 3 different acceptance criteria. This is one that I work with the local school. And the first one is about the cumulative GPA and what percent of your class rank that you are in. So in this case, what we've done is we're collecting that, excuse me, cumulative GPA. I'm sorry, I'm getting a little bit of dry mouth here. Cumulative GPA here, where we've collected that. And then I'm also now using AI to assist me here, where it's looking at the class size and my class rank to determine what my percentage is of my graduating class. You can see here that is 26.85. I know obviously that's a percent, but I'm well within the top 50% here. And just to note, obviously I understand, most people that are processing these, you understand your acceptance requirements far better than I do. But I put this in here just for, let's say you get a new hire that isn't as familiar yet, or you're kind of working through some things with them. This right here is actually uneditable. I can't delete it. It's more just a visual aid. But it doesn't have to be in there. We're not actually going to move this data anywhere from the descriptions here. It's just in here for visual aid. So one of the things that we can do is do this in kind of a waterfall order or a kind of trickle down effect, where if, let's say, criteria 1 is met, great, that student can then move on pretty easily. But if it's not met and you need to do the core GPA calculations, that can be criteria 2 here. That can then start that process, and we can do the core GPA that you saw up above. So in this case, we're actually bringing that core GPA down here. It's not being recalculated, somewhere else behind the scenes or whatever. It's directly affected by this core GPA that you see right here. It's being brought down here. And that's how we're determining, yes, that is higher than the 2.7 15 unit core. So therefore, criteria 2 is met. And then lastly, if, let's say, for some reason a student doesn't meet those 2, but they can get in with a high ACT score or SAT score, that's something we can also do here. So we look for the overall composite score as well as the SAT. So in this case, because I didn't take the SAT, it defaults to 0, and it flags it just for somebody to come in and look at it and verify that I did not take the SAT. So I can just right click and simply confirm it. So that removes all of the errors and things that we saw on the page here. That red icon that was up above is now gone, and everything has been validated. The other part of this too that we can do here is these fields that you see here, processing information. This is for auditing purposes. So it has the exact date that I processed this batch. I cannot go in and change this. Also, because I'm the user that is signed in at the moment, I cannot change that either. So it locks in my name here. And then I can also add comments and say, like Logan meets all 3 criteria. And then that's great. So one of the things that we can do is this will now live. Oh, and I even spelled wrong. Thank you, Grammarly. So now that I put that in there, a couple things can happen. We can pass this information along to like a Slate or Recruit or something like that if you want to keep that information there. The other thing that we can do is we can actually apply an annotation on this actual document to be archived with it. So anytime you go back and look at this document, you can see who processed it, what date and time they processed it, and any comments that they may have had. So I leave that one kind of optional, just depending on that individual school and what they want to do. So now that this has been complete and we're good to go, I'm going to save this and complete this task. So now a couple things are happening. I'm actually running export. And because we are a Slate preferred partner, this is actually being exported to Slate. And because we work very closely with Application Extender, this is also being put into Application Extender, or as you guys may know it, BDM. So I can actually show you that. And let me move the little zoom bar here out of my way so I can click. So when I come over here, let me just reload this real fast. You can see that these, date and time, 7/1, 12/21, that's our time now. So these are actually in here. And if I click on it, open it up, here's that document. So we successfully exported to Slate. And then behind the scenes, there is a process that will import that into the individual fields. And then on this side of it, I'm just going to sign into my application extender. I just have a generic username and password, but I'm going to come over here, start a new query, and last name, and we're just going to put Hill Run. And it's going to kick me back an error, but you can see here the 7/1/2025, 4/20. That's because my timing on my machine is off, but you can see that document is here. And if I go back, you can see where we've got that information here. So can go export to both of those. And then just to kind of show you on the flip side of this, if I wanted to say Logan Hill, click on that record, here it is. It's got the GPA. I can come over here to the profile, Newcastle High School, the address. All of this kind of information is here on where we've got that, and materials, webinar, there's the document. So all of this can be put into Slate. So we got about 8 minutes or so left. Do we have any questions?
I don't see any right now, no. And but yeah, just a reminder, if you please send in any questions, there are no dumb questions, and you can send them in the Q&A box at the bottom of the screen.
And just one thing to note, obviously this process that you've seen here might be slightly different than what yours are, and you have some questions about maybe some other systems that you're using that we haven't talked about. Feel free to reach out to me. I can do this demo again for you guys and even make it a little bit more custom or a deeper conversation. I'm happy to answer any questions and work with you all.
All right. Well, fantastic. Those were some really valuable insights on automating high school transcripts. Everyone, again, thank you for joining us today. We hope that this has given you ideas on how you can streamline your own operations. And remember, we will be emailing out a link to this recording shortly, either probably tomorrow or Thursday. We encourage you to rewatch this content once you get it, or share it with colleagues who might benefit. And if you're ready to explore how Grooper can help your institution directly, please don't hesitate to reach out to Logan or anyone else on the Grooper team. And thanks, everyone. Have a great rest of your day.